Fora TV. The world is thinking.
What I like to remind people about charter schools is they seem really different, but they're public schools. So they're not doing anything that is illegal for a public school in the United States to do. No one ever said to the public schools here that they could not have a school year of 220 days if that's what they wanted to do. Now, I think this is not an inner city, so that probably wouldn't be appropriate, but maybe in inner city San Francisco, right? No one ever said that that couldn't be done. No one ever said that you couldn't use regular diagnostic testing, that you couldn't do many of these other things. None of these things are illegal for public schools. They just don't do them. And when we start thinking about why it is that they don't do them, we'll quickly start to talk about politics, the courts, constraints on what public schools can do that gets between them and student achievement. Okay? So again, most of these things that the charter schools do, they're not silver bullet types of things, right? They're just sort of sensible things that you might do if you were dealing with an inner city population of kids, 93% of whom were poor. But they're not things that the regular public schools are doing. So that really brings us back to the question of what is it that is getting between our children in the United States and a superior education? And a lot of it is the institutions we have that have made it very difficult for the regular public schools in the United States to function efficiently, to be well managed, to use their resources well, and to make good decisions. Okay? And many of those things have to do with politics and the courts, but they also have to do with the fact that there aren't very strong incentives, so that if you have a completely failing public school in the United States, parents cannot walk away, and they cannot make that decision for themselves. The other thing I wanted to note for you in the big picture is these charter schools differ a lot. They don't all use the same policies, and in fact, something I didn't emphasize is that they don't even really entirely agree on what the best sort of curriculum looks like. Some of them adopt the sort of curricula that would probably be popular with scholars at Hoover, and some of them adopt very different curricula. But they all have pretty good effects, and the average effect is definitely positive, and there isn't that big a range. If I were to have shown you the range of effects of New York City's regular public schools, there would be some big negative effects there, and none of them have big negative effects. So what does that tell us? It tells us that even if people differ a lot on what they believe is good in American education, even if you think all kids should be sitting in straight rows in a uniform and reading from a textbook, and I think all the kids should be sitting on pillows on the floor, and birds should be flying through the classroom, and so I have visited a charter school like that. All of those schools, okay, are under competitive pressure. All of them are benefiting from superior governance and the superior autonomy that I think charter schools have. So they're much closer to functioning like other American institutions, and I think that's really the key to why it is that they're an important part of American education reform, and perhaps the sort of the thin end of the wedge, as many people hope they will be.